Welcome back to the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Retrospective. This is part 6, where we'll finally discuss the season people have been curious about since the beginning. Season 6, otherwise known as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fast Forward. To the uninitiated, you might wonder, what the heck is going on here? Was this a new show or something? Well, I covered the history of this in the Season 5 video, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version here. The first 5 seasons are what I'm going to call the original 2003 series. It's what most people are thinking of when they reflect on the show. As a whole, they were great. A constantly evolving story, high-octane action, memorable characters, everything you'd want. It was a modern-day version that set out to adapt the comics more faithfully than any prior version, while also taking liberties to improve the story when needed. The tone of the show was always somewhat serious, but when you hit Season 4, things took a turn towards body horror and heavier psychological themes. Because of this, the company responsible for the action figures, Playmates Toys, requested the show go in a lighter direction, and so, when production on Season 5 was well underway, Season 6 was conceptualized, a season where the Turtles and Master Splinter would get sent 100 years into the future, the year 2105, and having adventures in the new setting, interacting with faces both old and new. The studio felt that the interest in the show was dwindling, so their solution was that after Season 4 had aired its final episode, Season 5, where the story wrapped up, would get shelved, and then they'd begin airing Fast Forward ahead of schedule in a desperate bid to keep the audience interested. The fact that this happened in 2006, the year Ben 10 really took off, does make me wonder if that was the reason they thought they needed a flashy gimmick to keep the audience, but there's no evidence confirming that. It was just something I thought about. As for what happened to Season 5, you can just watch the Season 5 video for that. Believe it or not, I actually have quite a bit of nostalgia for Fast Forward. Before Season 6, I didn't really watch this show much. If it was on, I wouldn't turn it off, but I only went to 4Kids to watch Sonic X. I do know we rented the Attack of the Mousers DVD once, but besides that, the Turtles weren't my main interest when the first 4 seasons were airing. But Fast Forward was different. Its bright colors and visuals caught my attention much more. I distinctly remember the episode Headlock Prime being the first one I saw. Now, what made me watch Fast Forward over the other seasons? Well, it wasn't just the show itself, I'd also say it was the release of the 2007 film TMNT that really got me hooked. When this movie came out on DVD, I think I must have seen it like a dozen times. There were just so many cool moments and memorable shots I'd always come back to. To this day, I still think TMNT is a good movie, and it's probably my favorite Turtles film. It's not perfect, and the first film from 1990 has a lot of stuff going for it, but I just enjoy watching TMNT more. Its unique premise makes it something that you can't find elsewhere. But that's a discussion for a different video. Back in the day, I also loved the toy line for TMNT, and I played the video game a lot as well. This gave me more interest in watching Fast Forward, getting its merchandise, and then becoming an established fan of the Turtles. But how does Fast Forward hold up today? Well, that's a different conversation. The lighter tone and different animation is why most people remember Fast Forward as the moment the 2003 series really went down the drain, and that's coming from fans of the first 5 seasons. Needless to say, this season and the final season of the series, Back to the Sewer, are not held in high regard by the Turtle fanbase. Even I hated Fast Forward for years. In 2012, I finally got to watch the first 5 seasons on YouTube and learned about the history of the show, the kind of details I've been sharing for the past 5 videos. Back in 2012, I was constantly rewatching clips of the show from all 7 seasons in Turtles Forever, but the more I grew to love the first 5 seasons, Fast Forward and onwards just didn't hold up as well as I remembered. Because now I was comparing it to the quality standard from the first 5 seasons. Eventually, I just wrote Seasons 6, 7, and Turtles Forever off as kiddie trash and would stop after Season 5 when rewatching the show. The year is now 2022. It has now been 10 calendar years since I last fully rewatched Fast Forward and Back to the Sewer. Going into this video series, I was honestly looking forward to giving this season another chance. I'm now an adult, not a preteen, so a season with a more lighthearted tone doesn't automatically suck, you know? It could surprise me with fun episodes and comedic moments, ultimately giving me more content from my favorite version of the TMNT. Or maybe it does suck and I'll dislike it just as much as I did when I was 12. Let's waste no more time and find out which one of those statements is true. I see no better place to start than with the premise. Episode 1, Future Shell Shock, begins like any normal day for the Turtles. Mikey and Raph arguing over the TV remote, while the rest watch in horror. But suddenly, a flash causes the whole lair to look abandoned as the Turtles now don't have their masks, weapons, or anything. When they get outside, they find Central Park, only it's high in the sky with towering skyscrapers and flying cars all around. They have found themselves in the year 2105. Something I do like about this episode is that they don't answer how this happened immediately. We get a lot of scenes of the group trying to get around by themselves. Like this part where we see a Triceraton delivery truck, only it's delivering newspapers, not fusion grenades or other deadly weapons. Once the Turtles have caused their usual amount of damage, they get rescued by a robot named Serling who gives them all Enviropacks, Graviton regulators, and Universal translators. bringing them to a penthouse full of stuff from their heyday like the TCRI ooze canister, the sewer sled, the Shredder's armor, and Casey's mask. The collection is owned by a kid named Cody Jones, the great-grandson of Casey and April. Cody's always heard legends of the Turtles and their various adventures but never got to see them because footage doesn't exist of them. So Cody, a genius in his own right, built a time window to watch the Turtles in action, but this caused an accident that sent the whole group to the year 2105, and now the setup for the entire season is that they need to rebuild the time window to send everyone home, while dealing with a host of new bad guys like the three-headed triple threat, the living computer virus Viral, the flying Inuashi Gungeon, the mysterious Torben Zix, the alien Shokanabo, and the industrious Darius Dunn, who is Cody's uncle that currently runs April's tech company, as Cody isn't old enough himself and his parents are dead. Serling takes care of Cody and has since he was a baby. He's the main comic relief character of the season as he can't stand the antics of the Turtles that often leave the penthouse a mess. But that's pretty much it when talking about the status quo of Fast Forward. The format of the show itself isn't that different. The biggest difference between the first 5 seasons and this one is the art style. This doesn't bother me on principle. I mean, the animation was never consistent on this show anyway. If you look at this image I made, in Season 1, the Turtles' heads were always drawn in this more rounded fashion, but Seasons 2 through 5 went with a more angular look. Weirdly, having 2 distinct styles of angular designs that episodes would seemingly use at random. Or maybe they were tied to different production companies, I'm not sure. But just look at the close-ups of the Turtles and Splinter from Exodus Part 1 and Part 2. They just don't look the same. Fast Forward goes all in with the more angular style. If this allowed them to produce episodes more easily, I'd say that's perfectly fine. I mean, look what the DC Animated Universe did when going from Batman's more complex animation to Superman's simpler style. It produced more consistency between episodes, and I'm in favor of that. With Fast Forward, my issue doesn't lie with simpler designs, it is instead that each turtle is oversaturated compared to the more muted color scheme from the first 5 seasons. I guess you could say it complements the world design of Fast Forward for each character to appear brighter, but looking at the brief scene in the present from the first episode, you can tell how jarring it looks in comparison to what we had in the same setting from Season 5. This is a mid-edit addition to the script. I completely forgot to write about this in the video, but it's also completely atrocious that they decided to fix Leonardo's shell. This never gets explained, but after Season 3, Leonardo had enough injuries to where his shell had a piece of it permanently missing throughout the entirety of Season 4 and Season 5, and now it's just back to normal. A really awesome piece of continuity is just missing now. That's not really directed to the art style of Fast Forward, it's more character design, but still, like I said, I forgot to bring that up. Back to the video. But love it or hate it, it's the look we have to deal with now when watching the season, so I quickly got past that and focused on the episodes themselves. And I'll be honest, Season 6 has a decent amount of things going for it. For starters, I think the setting is pretty interesting. This Jetsons-type future isn't something you haven't seen before, but I just think it looks neat. The futuristic part of New York City was built upon the foundation of the old one, so the Turtles are able to visit the lower sections of New York to get an experience more akin to the one they're used to from the 21st century. On that note, they're freely able to walk the streets because Earth is so populated with all kinds of alien races that the Turtles fit right in. The reason they need all the tech they have to walk around is because the city has different gravity zones and elements in the atmosphere to account for the different requirements each species needs. Something we saw in Season 2 when the Turtles found out that the Triceratons breathe a mixture of nitrogen and sulfur, not oxygen. Point being that I think the world of Fast Forward is pretty well thought out. They even explain how Earth came to be the way it is in 2105 by showing us the status of an immortal character. Episode 6, Bishop Tonight, sees the heroes meeting with Agent Bishop, but he's not the person he was 100 years ago. He's now President Bishop, who runs an organization called the Pan-Galactic Alliance. The Turtles obviously don't trust him, but Cody assures them that he's a really popular figure in the 22nd century. Bishop, as we knew him, had been afraid of an alien invasion for over 200 years. But he realized that the Earth was just not capable of defending itself from alien threats. The only way to protect the Earth is to join forces with aliens like the Triceratons, the Utroms, and a plethora of other species. That way, they could form an alliance that would share ideas and technology, ultimately leading towards greater security across the galaxy. The Earth becoming a hotspot of galactic travel, alongside moon-based Bishop, a spaceport located on the moon. You might say, does Bishop changing his ways absolve him of the horrible things he had done? Well, I suppose not, but since he's an immortal character, it's the best he can do. Episode 22, Head of State, shows what happened to Bishop in more detail. Going back 50 years, Agent Bishop and Dr. Stockman were still working for the EPF, experimenting on alien DNA to create an army of super soldiers. But one day, a lab accident caused the whole facility to go up in flames, with Bishop trapped under some debris and Dr. Stockman being left for dead. One of Bishop's trapped aliens escaped and he had the ability to get revenge on Bishop and then some, which is exactly what Bishop thought was going to happen. but the alien decided to save his life. This act of kindness completely changed Bishop because he had been capturing and torturing aliens for decades, simply because that's what an alien UFO had done to him hundreds of years ago. But realizing that an alien could forgive him for what he had done, maybe that meant his whole outlook on life was completely fucked up. Thus, the Earth Protection Force was disbanded, and in its place, the Pan-Galactic Alliance was created. I think that's a really interesting backstory for this season. It takes characters we already knew and uses the 100 years later setting to show us how they've grown and changed and how that informs the world the Turtles live in now. The main conflict of this episode brings back my favorite character, Baxter Stockman. He's now got this squid brain body with an eyeball.
And here I thought Agent Bishop and I were the only ones who survived the good old days, though you didn't have to graft alien DNA onto your own body in order to pull it off.
How does he even talk without a mouth? I've said it before and I'll say it again, Stockman's various bodies make no sense, but I fucking love it because you never know what he's gonna look like next. It's great. Anyway, he's back to get revenge on Bishop for leaving him behind, when Bishop just didn't know he survived. It's a misunderstanding. And so Leo simply says this to Stockman: Bishop has changed. He's made a world where the difference between a man and a monster is how they act, not how they look. So which one is he gonna be? Bishop proves how different he is now by saving Stockman's life in the end, even giving Stockman a new job working for him. Best part about it is when Bishop says the technology has evolved so much in the last 100 years that they can easily give Stockman a new body, unlike the disastrous experiment from Season 4. I think this episode is probably my favorite one from Fast Forward because of how much it expands upon the continuity and gives Baxter Stockman a genuine, no questions asked, happy ending. In fact, this season has a lot of wholesome moments and episodes throughout, like Mikey finding out that there was a new Turtle Titan in 2105 that was raised on stories of Mikey's adventures from his grandfather, the Silver Century. Mikey even gives his blessings to the new guy at the end, after a whole episode of bitter jealousy. There's also this great episode where Cody gets trapped inside of his battle mech suit, and it's actually Serling who fights tooth and nail to save him. Despite being a comedy relief character most of the time, he's given some depth here as he really does care about Cody as if he were his own kid. It's heartwarming to say the least. Another episode I really liked was The Journal. This is about the book that Casey and April wrote about the lives of the Turtles, and the four are desperate to read the part about what happens after they come back from the future. Splinter says that doing so could change the outcome of the future, so it's not something they should do. Obviously, they try to do it anyway, and then read all kinds of horrible stuff, like how Mikey caused the Justice Force to be defeated. Leo was asked by the Ninja Tribunal to train with them more, alongside Karai, but his mistrust of her caused him to be banished. Donatello joins the Utroms in space exploration, but an accident turns him into a brain in a jar that's transferred into Sterling's body, and that Raph and Casey get attacked by a foot mystic who sends them to an island for 3 months. As April marries somebody else, the company goes to ruin and the entire planet is destroyed from pollution. The reveal is that Cody and Splinter put together this prank book in place of the real journal to teach them the lesson of not messing with the future. Love how Splinter loved writing the story, but admits he gave up at the end when a mystic just appears out of nowhere. This episode also succeeds at what I love the most in Fast Forward, when they take the stuff that's already happened and build off of it with a futuristic setting. Although, I want the people who have watched this show since it started airing to answer something for me. What was the Leo portion of this episode like when it first came out? I mean, it literally is about Leo training with the Ninja Tribunal alongside the now peaceful Karai, but when the episode aired, Season 5 was never seen, so you wouldn't know about either of these things. On that note, Nano is also a member of the Justice Force here, something that happened in Season 5 as well. I'm assuming when this episode was produced, the plans to shelve Season 5 had yet to be made, because all these episodes are made way in advance. So I can't fault the writers here, I'm just curious what the audience felt about this, because the Ninja Tribunal isn't even name-dropped until Season 5, despite their brief appearance in Season 4. A fan-favorite episode is Graduation Day, Class of 2105, where Leo, Raph, and Don have mastered their ninja skills, but Mikey is so lazy that he won't advance with them. But Splinter gives him one final chance to prove himself, which he does by learning that the only thing that has ever held his potential back is himself, not the video games or any of that stuff. It's a good one, although I feel like by this point we've already seen a couple of these Mikey needs to step up episodes, making it a bit predictable. And from an enjoyment perspective, I think the Season 4 episode Grudge Match was a lot more interesting for not just Mikey himself, but other major characters like Leonardo, who was in the midst of his descent into depression at the time. There isn't anything I dislike about this one, it's just not the one that stands out in my mind as a favorite. Another fan favorite episode is DNA is Thicker Than Water, based around one of the season's new villains, the Dark Turtles. I'm sure the action figure company loved this idea because everyone loves evil doppelgangers. The backstory is that the Turtles' DNA was used to make these counterfeit turtles that they have to fight with. The aforementioned episode focuses on Dark Leo infiltrating the penthouse, pretending to want to change himself but is really planning to let the other Dark Turtles in. But he actually starts to ponder what it would be like if he did change his behavior, as he sees how nice it is with the Turtles and friends versus how shit it is with his own brothers. This is another good one, but the Dark Turtles don't get any more screen time past this episode, so it's a good episode but on the predictable side, lacking any long-term payoff. The Dark Turtles work with the main villain of the season, Cody's uncle, Darius Dunn. Dunn starts the show as the prominent figure behind April's company, but the Turtles help Cody realize that Dunn is evil and actually using the company to develop weapons of mass destruction. Having an overarching main villain works well for shows like this, giving the series a narrative to follow throughout the episodes, as you really do want to see Dunn get properly taken down, giving the audience something to look forward to, especially as he gets more overt with his evil nature as the episodes go on. Earlier in this season, he's content with other groups doing his work for him as he just calls the shots. But once he's exposed, we see how terrible he actually is, since he was the one responsible for Cody being trapped in a battle mech set to explode. His own nephew, and Splinter really lets him have it for this, saying Dunn is the most despicable villain he's seen yet for doing something like that to a kid. I mean, even the Utrom Shredder didn't do that sort of thing. For these reasons, Dunn's a good villain, but he's also connected to one of the many things I don't like about Fast Forward. So far, I've been saying a lot of good stuff about this season, and that's because it's a season that has a lot of interesting ideas and episodes, but overall, I still have many things I don't like about Fast Forward, which leaves me more lukewarm on it overall than positive. For seasons 2 and 5, I felt the writing didn't fully execute the ideas as well as they wanted to. It generated a lot of discussion, but it's not really that much of an issue. For Fast Forward, I actually have a short list of problems, but they're more rooted in the season's DNA than it was for the others, so let's get into them. Fast Forward goes on for way too long. This is a full season, 26 episodes, no different than seasons 1 through 4. It's not like I can say, yeah, 4 kids should have ordered 13 episodes instead of 26, because the 26 we got is kind of a slog to watch. You know, it's not really sound logic. It's not the number of episodes we get that makes it feel this way. It's just that the episodes I thought were pretty boring and played out are in greater numbers compared to the episodes I thought were really interesting. I made a point of highlighting episodes I really liked earlier because the rest are just often really predictable, which is something I even said about some of the episodes I did like. But these come without the strong moments to prop them up. Like the Gaminator, where Viral teleports the Turtles into a video game, and it's just such a cliche and boring setup. Like, ah man, they only have so many lives in this game, better find the cheat codes to escape. Proving why something is boring is a difficult task for me, especially in a TV show. It's just that the majority of episode plots had me checking the time because I just wasn't into it. In an action show, you'd think dull plot lines wouldn't be the worst thing because the story exists to set up interesting action set pieces. But that's another issue. The action in Fast Forward is nowhere near the pacing or variety we saw in the first 4 seasons. Those seasons had fights that were really fun to watch because each hit felt like a packed a punch, something you'd feel because of the fluidity of the animation and the sound design. In Season 6, the movement is still fast, but it just lacks the punch the old seasons had, including Season 5. But the action is a tangent from what I was saying. The season is too long, and one of the reasons it feels that way is because there's very little payoff here. We watch the season for 26 episodes, and we never see Dunn get definitively beaten or carted off to jail like we did the Shredder. His villainy is an open plot thread that doesn't get resolved, and I know why this is. Fast Forward was supposed to get a second season. The second season was when they were planning on doing more hype ideas like bringing back Chirel, stealing the body of a Triceraton and becoming the Shredder once more. There was going to be an episode based around Space Usagi, more plot development for Bishop and Stockman, and eventually an episode that sent the Turtles home. All ideas that never ended up seeing the light of day because the Fast Forward concept didn't get a second season. Instead, the next season decided to pivot back to the Turtles in the present day. So therefore, Fast Forward sets up a lot of stuff, and in hindsight, none of it really mattered in the long run. Something that greatly impacts the likelihood of my watching the season again. What did get resolved in Fast Forward was the other main villain plot of the season, Shokanabo. But then the problem is that he's the least interesting main villain the show has ever had. We spent half the season building up to the Day of Awakening where he'll block the sun and turn everyone into Kanabo drones. This is just dull to watch since Shokanabo isn't very menacing and is just a giant blob type guy. Not a lot of interesting fight scenes come of that. After his first 2 plans fail, he's convinced the Turtles know that the Day of Awakening is, so he captures the Turtles to ask them what they know about it, which is nothing, and after they escape, they now know there's a Day of Awakening to stop. Like, what? The point being, the fact that this really dull and played out villain plot being the main thing this season is quite lame. Now, I don't have a good segue for this, but another thing that bugs many people about Fast Forward is its attempts to gear towards the younger audience, mainly through its new characters. On the whole, I liked both Cody and Serling. Serling especially. I already mentioned that he gets a lot of good moments this season, but his role as the comedy relief character is well done because I just found his disdain for the Turtles to be entertaining. Now, characters like Cody have always confused me. I don't know why executives think kids want kid characters to tag along with the heroes. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't, nor did I ever meet a kid that wanted to be Robin. They wanted to be Batman because he's the hero, obviously. But in Cody's case, he's a good character. He's got an arc throughout the season of learning real lessons from the Turtles, seeing through his uncle, and is quite useful throughout. Never an annoying tag-along. So adding a kid sidekick wasn't totally diabolical in this case. The attempt to aim at a younger audience I really don't like would be the addition of the Turtles having a battle cry.
It's ninja time! It's ninja time, guys! It's ninja time! Hey, that was a rental! It's ninja time!
Seriously, at least once an episode, someone will say, "It's ninja time" before a fight. It's so weird because that never happened once on the show before. And it's not even cool, it just sounds really stupid and a slap in the face compared to the first season where they blatantly made fun of the original show for having that kind of stuff.
Turtles forever! Or something like that we all yell at once.
Almost like the show overstayed its welcome. Which is the perfect way to sum up the whole thing. I have had a difficult time throughout this script explaining what makes the season not really work for me, because a lot of the things I didn't like, such as the action or the dull setups, is not really anyone's fault, it's just more the show itself. Throughout the first 5 videos, I praised how the show masterfully escalated the stakes from episode 1, fighting tiny mouser robots, to season 5's finale, fighting a giant dragon. Season 5 was supposed to be the end of the show, and I really felt like it should have been. When you've gone as out there as seasons 4 and 5 did, there was only so many interesting ideas left in the well. Overall, I don't fault them for making more of this series since it was a good show, and 4Kids still had the license, so why not keep going? But I just think season 6 was put in a weird spot because the show had achieved so much that there wasn't much left to say. In hindsight, Fast Forward is held back by the show's past and the show's future because many of its most interesting ideas just didn't come to fruition. So what we're left with is a season that is certainly above watchable. If you're a fan of the series, I'd say give it a watch. There are good moments and episodes in there. I'm a very big fan of what they did with Agent Bishop, Stockman, the world design, the backstory, Serling and Cody, the continuity, the setup with Darius Dunn. It's all there, and those things are all definitely worth watching at least once if you liked what the show was before, because it's more screen time with this version of the Turtles. However, I won't be coming back to Fast Forward ever again besides a few scenes and episodes I liked because it's not exciting while watching most of its episodes. And in the long run, it didn't get the chance to feel as climactic as the previous seasons, which is a shame. I think the episode that captures my feelings on Fast Forward the best would be Timing is Everything. Here we have a plot set off by Shokunabo trying to use time travel himself, but this results in a disastrous consequence as time portals open up across the city. So we have this lame villain, but a premise that could make for a good episode. One standout concept is Splinter and Don being sent back in time when the Turtles first got hit by the Utrom ooze. To get back in time, they send a letter to Mikey and Raph to help them get back, but they have to deliver it from where they are in the past. But the letter says to only deliver it on this exact day in the future, so Mikey and Raph get it then. That's cool. But Leo and Cody going to the past is when a light bulb really hit me. They're in New York City. It's dark and a loud crashing sound releases water on the nearby streets as Foot Ninja are unconscious. Then you realize this is the ending of the Shredder Strikes from Season 1 where Splinter dropped a water tower on the Shredder. A time heist concept like this can work, allowing things to play out differently with future knowledge, a la Endgame, but here, watching Season 6 Leo and later all the Turtles fight a Season 1 Utrom Shredder, it just makes me want to go back and watch that episode when it first happened because it's a lot more interesting. They even make it a joke how low he is now compared to these futuristic Turtles. I just feel like that really goes to show that this series was overstaying its welcome to the point where its premier bad guy is reduced to a punchline because we've upped the stakes so much. And I've kept the show going past its natural endpoint. It doesn't make you stop and think, man, we've grown so much. It makes you think, man, I'd love to go watch Season 1 again. I hope you see what I mean when I say this is the perfect summary of Fast Forward. It's a good episode, there's witty lines, interesting concepts, and an overall entertaining watch while you're watching it, but it's held back by bland villains and being in the shadow of what the show used to be. Ultimately not being something I would really want to watch again. In conclusion, that sums up Season 6. It's perfectly watchable, but I don't plan on coming back to it anytime soon. At the beginning, I posed the possibility that I'd find new love for the season, or I'd hate it like I did at 12 years old. Now, I'm exactly in the middle. I'm glad I came back to get this more level-headed perspective, but I unfortunately didn't love it. Now, the title asks the question, did Fast Forward kill the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And many may disagree with this, but I would say the answer to that is no. Overall, this show was affected greatly by 4Kids' greed and Playmates wanting to sell more figures. What I think set the show's fate in stone was back in Season 4 when they made Insane in the Membrane and that episode got pulled from airing. I can't say the show would end after season 5 if they toned that episode down, but I can tell you this. If they didn't fly so close to the sun with season 4, I highly doubt Playmates would say the show was getting too dark and needed to go in a more lighthearted direction. And then the 4Kids execs might not have hastily shelved season 5 and aired season 6 a year ahead of schedule in a desperate bid to keep the Turtles as relevant as possible. Perhaps Playmates already thought the show was too dark. Maybe 4Kids felt the same way. But episodes from season 4 like Dragon's Brew, Bad Day, and Insane in the Membrane only serve to prove their point. This is only an inference, but I really do think Insane in the Membrane being pulled from the air was the catalyst for all of this. Fast Forward certainly could have been more interesting on its own merits, but the tone probably wouldn't have changed as much as it did if not for season 4. The death of the 2003 series was a slow process, one that should sound very familiar if you watched the season 1 video. But I guess we can get more into it in the next video, part 7, where we'll talk about season 7, TMNT, Back to the Sewer. In the meantime, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.